conflict begins on Sycanis 4 at an old communications outpost. The powerful voxcasters of the comm relay will allow the victor of this battle to effectively communicate into low orbit, and the documentation inside contains tracking of all shipments to and from major starports on the planet. This power level 20 combat patrol marks the first battle of what will become known as the Sycanis Event. So for this power level 20 combat patrol, we're doing the Sweep and Clear mission, where one scores 10 points for holding any of the 4 objective markers you can see here, another 10 points for holding more of them than your opponent holds, and another 10 points for a potential max of 30 if one of those is the one in your opponent's deployment zone. Now for my agenda, I took Witch Hunter, which gives any squad that kills a unit of Psychers plus 1 experience for the campaign, or plus 3 if they kill a Psyker character. And my opponent took Lord of the Warp, which gives whichever unit on his side of the battlefield manifested the most psychic powers in the game an extra plus 2 experience points at the end of the game. Now, the Tau of Task Force Phantom Ray are sending out 2 full infantry teams. That's 10 Fire Warriors in a basic strike team, and 10 in a Pathfinder team, 2 of whom have rail rifles. The Fire Warrior Shazwee has a marker light, just in case I can't get one from one of my other sources. Now, they are being led by the Cadre Fireblade Shaz El Makreel. He is a really effective and inexpensive HQ choice. What he does is he allows all pulse weapons in a radius around him to fire an extra round if shooting within half their normal distance. For example, pulse rifles are normally a 30-inch range, and they fire 1 round at 30 inches, or they can rapid fire 2 rounds at 15. He would allow them to fire 1 round up to 30, or 3 rounds at 15 or under. Now, this actually synergizes really, really well with my Septenant, which increases the range of all rapid-fire and heavy weapons by 6%. Or 6 inches, rather. Now, he's got the Through Unity Devastation Warlord trait, which allows him to declare a unit in line of sight, and all allied units in 6 inches of him increase their AP by 1 on any wound roll of 6+. It's kind of like the Eldar's Shuriken rule. Now, he's also got the Relic, the Puretide Engram, which allows him 1 free command point reroll that can only be used on him, as well as being one of those relics. Pretty much every army has one, where whenever a stratagem is used, he rolls a d6, and on a 6 or higher, I will gain a command point for free. I figured that would be really effective in a combat patrol game, because we only start with 3 command points, and having more command points is a big deal. Now finally, the Tau are riding in style. I brought their TY7 Devilfish with me. Now, it's basically the Tau version of a Rhino, but because it's armed with a burst cannon, 2 smart missile systems, and 2 Seeker missiles, which are basically free because we're doing power level and not points, it can still put out a pretty surprising amount of gunfire in a shooting phase. The Grey Knights have a small garrison at the installation, consisting of 2 5-man strike squads. One is equipped with all Force Halberds, while the other has 4 Force Halberds and a sergeant with a Thunderhammer. Now, they must have been due up for inspection because the commander of the entire Grey Knight Crusade is here, and that is Champion Belarius Thule. He's an absolute bruiser in melee combat, and his Warlord trait is First to the Fray, which allows him and any Grey Knight units within 6 inches of him to reroll all failed charge rolls. Now, he is armed with the relic Fury of Deimos, which is an upgraded Stormbolter that makes him have a serious amount of potential in the shooting phase. At 30 inches range, Strength 5, AP 1. That is rapid fire 3s, so with Bolter Discipline, he's shooting 6 attacks pretty much all the time. My Fire Warriors do not like that, not one bit. Okay, and so as the battle begins, we roll off to see who goes first, and we begin to deploy our armies. I stupidly forgot to take a picture of the entire table after armies had been set up, but come on, with his force numbering only 11 models, there's not much to see anyway. You can see here that my Fire Warriors set up right in front of that objective in the radar fields, with Makrell leading from the front and within, while my Pathfinders took the high ground on one of the abandoned structures in the back to provide microlect support and to secure the objective in my deployment zone. The Devilfish was front and center as a bit of a distraction unit and to allow it to firefight and respond to whatever it was needed. He did set up only 2 units, 1 strike team directly in front of his HQ, and a Champion Thule sitting directly on top of the objective in his deployment zone. Now, he went first, and he declared 2 things, neither of which I particularly cared for. First, that he was in the Tide of Shadows. Now, if you're unfamiliar with the Grey Knights, effectively they get to declare these tides at the beginning of every round, and these have game-wide effects. Tide of Shadows means that his units always count as being in cover for the purposes of cover saves, even if they're in the open. That's not such a big deal because I do have a lot of sources that remove the cover saves, so I'm not too concerned about that. But if he's actually in cover, then he inflicts a -1 to hit on all shooting units that are targeting him. That's pretty brutal, considering that my base ballistic skill is only a 4+. They're not that accurate, Tau, and I rely on shooting pretty much exclusively in this army. Anytime he's in cover, then I'm only hitting on 5s, and that's not great. The second thing that he did mention was that he was deep striking his second strike team directly onto the objective in front of my fire warriors there. I didn't know this, but evidently Grey Knight's deep striking specifically allows you to land like 6 inches or something like that from an enemy unit, something way closer than other deep strikers. And that's a lot of DACA from those storm bolters at my unit that are completely out of cover on turn 1. Now, as a reminder, we're playing narrative play, not match play, for those of you wondering how he could deep strike there. Now, in match play, you're absolutely right. He couldn't deep strike on turn 1, but narrative play doesn't have that rule. That's specifically a match play rule. Narrative play lets you do a couple of other weird things. You can deep strike on turn 1, you can use the same stratagem multiple times in the same phase, as long as you have the command points for it. Some of that stuff. It's not designed to be as fair as it is designed to be exciting. And as we went into his psychic phase, I was reminded of the fact that literally every unit in his army is a psyker, as he tossed a baby smite at me from the strike squad right in front of my fire warriors. Now, so he doesn't get access to the full smite on most of his units. He gets a smaller one, which has a shorter range. It only does 1 mortal wound. It does a flat 3 if you're demons, but I'm not. Now, yeah, it's only 1 mortal wound, but hey, it's a dead model, more or less for free, right? And remember, I'm Tau, so I have 0 way to actually deny the Witch, which is going to be an issue later on in the campaign. Now, he didn't use his HQ to cast Gate of Eternity on the strike squad that was right next to his HQ. This allows him to reposition 1 unit in range anywhere on the board, so long as they're outside 9 inches from any enemy unit. This allowed him to place them with the strike squad with the Thunderhammer, behind cover, threatening to overrun my Pathfinders. Now, they aren't going to be able to charge this turn, but they'll be able to shoot, and we've determined that when you're inside the footprint of runes or inside a building, you gain +1 to cover saves and -1 to be hit. This will come in handy as we move into the shooting phase, and that squad lets fly with all of those storm bolters directly at my Pathfinders. Somehow they don't manage to kill a single one of them. I'm frankly in awe, because normally Pathfinders melt extremely quickly. The same can't be said for my fire warriors that are babysitting Makrell. Eating not only the shooting from the strike squad right in front of them, but from that damn relic bolter on Thule. They're completely and totally wiped out. The only one left remaining is the Shazwi and Makrell himself. Makrell shouts for a tactical retreat, and the Shazwi might have taken that a bit too literally as he fails his morale save and flees off the battlefield, completely wiping the squad. Due to the way deep striking and gate work, neither of the Grey Knight squads can charge, and so we move immediately into Tau turn 1. Now on Tau turn 1, I have Makrell run 6 inches over to the Pathfinders, because he's all by his lonesome, and move the Devilfish right up next to that strike squad in the ruins. Makrell declares through Unity Devastation and points his marker light at the Grey Knights in the radar field. He hits, and I immediately spend a CP on uplink marker lights, which adds D3 + 1 marker lights to that squad. With a 3 on the D3, the unit now has 5, meaning I've got that holy grail where I'm re-rolling once to hit, I get +1 to hit. Now with the fact that 3 Unity of Devastation is on them, any rolls of 6s add +1 AP, plus the rail rifles in the squad will inflict an additional mortal wound, and there's just a storm of pulse carbine rounds, railgun slugs, and a quick burst from the chirping recon drone's burst cannon. The Grey Knights just completely get eradicated. I did something like an extra 8 or 9 wounds that was necessary to kill the squad. They might have some really scary damage, but without the right psychic powers to protect them, they're basically just regular Marines. Now, I put all the shots from the Devilfish into the squad in the ruins and managed to not kill a single one of them. Then we move into the charge phase, and I have that hover tank bum rush the squad. Do I actually expect the Devilfish to do anything? No, of course not. But it'll tar pit them for a round. Or so I think. He reminds me that they actually have a Thunderhammer, which I totally forgot about. I do nothing to him, just bumping up against his shins for a little bit, and then those Force Halberds just rip huge gaping holes in the Devilfish. Thankfully, the Thunderhammer missed every single one of its swings, which was a blessing. Now we move on to Grey Knight's turn 2, and it is a short one, with only 2 units on the board, one of which is locked into melee. He has to completely forego the movement phase. In the Psychic phase, his Grey Knight squad in the runes there cast their Baby Smite to strip another wound off the fish, while the champion gates himself on top of the runes near his squad. and he stares down the Pathfinders with malice, the Xenos already adjusting their guns to level at him, and he fires at them, putting 2 wounds on them. However, shield drones come in clutch, and they activate their savior protocols, they take the hits, and then save both mortal wounds with their feel no pain. A whopping 0 Pathfinders dead from 6 Strength 5 AP -1 shots. And he can't charge either due to how Gate disallows it. So in the fight phase, he's left just sitting there, chilling, while the squad that's in combat with the fish gets to swing. Now they rip it to absolute pieces, leaving it on only 1 wound before the Thunderhammer goes in. I know that if the Thunderhammer swings home, that is the end of the line for the fish. However, he hits with only 1 of his attacks. And at AP -3, I do actually have a 6+ armor save, which I somehow managed to make, and the fish lives on. Now on Tau turn 2, the fish disengages, and while it's falling back, manages to get onto the objective near the radar fields to claim it. A marker light from the Cadre Fireblade and a reminder of Through Unity Devastation, followed by the uplink marker light stratagem, paints the strike squad of the runes red shortly before the hailstorm of bullets from the Pathfinders makes their armor match it. Now, the sheer weight of saves that he's forced to make when I put an entire squad into them will usually wipe that squad, and I think that's probably going to be how I have to play going forward, is just drown him in dice. Now, I did put every bullet in my army into him, reducing him down to only a single model, Thule himself, who was taken off the runes here for an unrelated reason before being placed back on top of the same spot. But I don't have any charges here, so we go right into Grey Knight turn 3. Now on to Grey Knight's turn 3. With only 1 model remaining, Champion Thule rushes the tank to stop it from securing the objective. Now he knows it's on his last legs, and he knows that he will kill it, but he also knows that his only hope of winning this game at this point is to methodically remove my units from the board to stop me from claiming objectives. With his re-rolling charges, he definitely makes it in, and he peppers it with bolter fire before leaping up onto the sloped hull, stares down into the hull cameras and growls, "Die, Xenos filth," before swinging down in the fight phase. He rolls 3 wounds, which allow me 3 armor saves of 6+. If I fail one of them, I lose, but I roll 1, and that's a 6, and I roll another, and it's another 6, and can the fish make it? No, he can't. That skull there on the die you see is actually a 1, meaning the fish goes down. Sadly, the fish doesn't explode, so there's no damage to Thule for his trouble, and that leaves him totally exposed, however, to my shooting. Now on Tau turn 3, the entirety of the Pathfinder team, as well as Chazelle Macrel, are looking at the totally untouched Thule. Macrel advances over the objective in the runes nearby with a recon drone in tow to secure it. I'm figuring that since they're 2 models, they'll outnumber Thule if he rushes them, and still claim the objective. Now that's important because at this point, I only have 20, and he's got 30, as far as victory points go. In hindsight, I probably should have just shot him. With the amount of shots that they could have put out with the Fireblade there, even with a 2+ armor save, a 4+ invulnerable, he'd probably just fall under the weight of the dice, but, you know, hindsight is 20/20. Still, after the Fireblade runs over the objective, the Pathfinders put every shot they can into him using the aerial targeting stratagem. This gives him 1 marker light token for free, which allows me to reroll once to hit. I manage only a single wound on him, shooting being just as bad as my opponent's early game shooting. Now, unfortunately, that means that as we move on to Grey Knight's turn 4, Thule easily charges into Macrel, swinging with a righteous fury at that Xenos lieutenant. As he runs in, Macrel drops a photon grenade, imposing a -1 to hit on Thule. Despite this, Thule hits him 3 times. This would have killed him, but the recon drone dove in the way with the Savior Protocols rule and took 1 of those hits, suffering a mortal wound and saving Macrel with only 2 wounds left. Now, the recon drone has 2 wounds itself, and I didn't realize that originally, so now it's down to 1, and that makes its use as a meat shield pretty handy, actually. I like that quite a bit. Now, Thule is the only unit left, and that charge is in the entirety of Grey Knight's turn 4 because of that. With Tau turn 4, we take tally of the victory points, and we are even. We're both at 40 VP. Now, I can't allow that. I'm out for blood. Macrel uses his marker light to paint Thule, and once again, we declare Through Unity Devastation, and we use the uplight marker stratagem. A withering fusillade of pulse and rail rounds from the Pathfinders rip into Thule, who holds his storm shield up and manages to survive on 1 wound. I am upset, to say the least. Very upset. 1 wound left means that he's going to get to charge me. I can't stop it, and I suppose I could charge him, but I seriously doubt that I'll get a wound on him in melee. After all, the Fireblade is only strength 3 with AP nothing. I think he's got 3 attacks. For my trouble, I'd almost definitely get killed. So I resign myself to a draw here. If on his turn my opponent uses Gate to get himself back into his deployment zone, I'll be out of reach of all my guns, and we'll end the game with 50 victory points each. But no, Thule will not allow these Xenos to get their hands on the Mind Spike Crystals or the Radar Dishes. Grey Knight turn 5 starts with him walking directly up to Makrell to within 2 inches, as close as he can get, and entering the Psychic phase, where he uses his Baby Smite, which fails to manifest. He has to use his last command point to cast it again, taking 1 more wound from Makrell and leaving that Fireblade down to 1 HP. He fires shot after shot into the Pathfinders, considering, he's definitely going to get to charge Makrell. He knows Makrell's going to die. He might as well start wounding the Pathfinders now. He drops 2 of them and 1 of the drones. Then he sets his sight on the leader. Striding forward, sword held high, he intends to end the foul Xeno's life. Makrell turns and attempts to flee, firing off a few pot shots from his rifle in Overwatch, but failing to hit. The Pathfinders are just out of range to contribute for the greater good rule, so they can't help him. The recon drone is there, but it's a recon drone with 1 burst cannon. He doesn't have any marker lights on him for a reroll 1 to miss, but okay, whatever. I sigh, I roll the Overwatch with the drone, and I figure I'm about to lose my captain, and oh, it's 3 misses and a 6. There's a hit. Still, I need a 3 to wound, and oh, I rolled a 6 for the wound. Okay, well, he's just got to make his armor save, right? It's a 2+, so he should be oh! He rolled a 1 for his armor save. And, so that's the story of how Sword Champion Belarius Thule went down to Overwatch from a single recon drone. 1 lucky burst cannon shot ripping its way through the viewport of his shield and slugging him in the eye. That means the battlefield is completely clear of Grey Knights, and I win just based on that extra 10 victory points that I would get from the Pathfinders holding the same objective they have the entire game. And so it is with a sputter that Skirmish 1 of the Sycanis Event ends in a Tau victory.